My wife called me a failure for being just a teacher. 20 years later, our son proved money isn't everything. I, 52M, never thought I'd be sharing this story, but recent events have made me realize it's time. It's a long one, spanning 2 decades, but I promise it's worth the read. This isn't just about proving someone wrong. It's about learning what real success means. 20 years ago, I was working as a high school art teacher, living what I thought was a decent life with my wife and our 5-year-old son. We had a small house in a decent neighborhood, nothing fancy but comfortable enough. The pay wasn't great, but I loved my job and thought we were happy. My wife worked in marketing, making slightly more than me, and we managed to make ends meet while saving a little each month. Looking back, I should have seen the signs. The subtle jabs about my career choice during family gatherings, the way she'd introduce me as just a teacher at her company events, the growing distance between us. But I was naive, too focused on my students and our son to notice how much resentment was building. That all changed one evening when I came home early from an art club meeting. I was excited because one of my students had just won a regional competition, and I wanted to share the news. Instead, I overheard my wife on the phone with her sister in our home office. "He's such a disappointment," she said, not knowing I was standing in the hallway. A grown man playing with paint while others are making real money. Our son deserves better than a father who's satisfied being mediocre. Did you know Tom from my office just made partner? His kids are in private school now. While we're still counting pennies for basic supplies, I stood there, frozen, as she continued listing my failures. How I turned down a corporate job her father had offered. He could have been making 6 figures by now. How her friends' husbands were all successful businessmen while I was just a teacher. How she regretted not listening to her parents about me. "They saw it from the beginning," she said. "They knew he lacked ambition." That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, replaying every moment of our marriage, wondering how long she'd felt this way. The next morning, I tried talking to her about what I'd heard. Instead of apologizing or trying to explain, she doubled down. "Someone had to say it," she said over her morning coffee, like she was discussing the weather. "You're wasting your potential, and you're teaching our son that it's okay to aim low in life. Is that what you want for him? To struggle like we do?" I reminded her of all the lives I'd touched, the students who'd found their passion in my classroom. She just laughed. "Passion doesn't pay bills," she said. "Wake up and join the real world." The next few weeks were tense. We barely spoke, dancing around each other in our own home. Our son noticed, of course. He was always a perceptive kid. He'd draw pictures of our family with sad faces, and it broke my heart. Then came the charity event her company was hosting. She insisted I attend, probably hoping I'd network and finally see sense. Instead, I watched as she spent the entire evening with a real estate developer who donated to the cause. 2 months later, she told me she was leaving us for him. The divorce was messy, especially the custody battle. She argued that with her new husband's income, they could provide our son with better opportunities, private school, expensive hobbies, connections to the right people. Her lawyer painted me as a struggling artist who could barely support himself. But the judge saw through it. He noted my stable employment, involvement in the community, and most importantly, my consistent presence in our son's life. I was granted primary custody, with her getting weekend visits. Those early years were tough. I kept teaching while raising our son alone, and there were moments I questioned everything. My ex-wife's words would echo in my head during late nights grading papers, or when I had to say no to something our son wanted because we couldn't afford it. The child support helped, but it came with constant reminders of what she considered my inadequacies. But I kept going. I took on extra classes and summer school to make ends meet. I poured everything into being both a good teacher and a good father. I attended every school event, helped with homework, and made sure our son knew he could pursue whatever made him truly happy in life. We had movie nights where we'd watch documentaries about artists, scientists, and innovators who changed the world by following their passions. He was a quiet kid who spent hours drawing in his room. My ex-wife hated this, constantly pushing him toward practical activities during her weekends with him. She'd send him to business camps while I encouraged him to attend art workshops. She bought him books about successful CEOs while I filled his shelves with art history and graphic novels. This created a rift between them that grew wider over the years. When he was 14, he won his school's art competition. His mother didn't attend the ceremony, claiming she had an important business dinner. I watched him accept his award, saw the way his shoulders slumped when he scanned the audience and only saw me. That night, he asked me if she was right. If being an artist meant being a disappointment. I'll never forget that conversation. We sat on our worn-out couch, his award on the coffee table, and I told him about my own journey. about the joy of helping students discover their talents, about the thank you letters I'd received from former students who'd found their calling in my classroom. Success isn't just about money, I told him. It's about making a difference, about being true to yourself. He took those words to heart. Through high school, he developed a unique style that combined traditional art with digital elements. He'd spend hours in the computer lab after school, teaching himself programming so he could create digital art. His mother called it a waste of time, but I saw the passion in his eyes. When college applications came around, she pushed for business schools. He applied to art programs instead, earning a scholarship to a prestigious art institute. The day he got accepted, she called me in a fury, accusing me of ruining his future. Our son overheard the conversation and made a decision that would shape the next few years. He chose to spend less time at her house, focusing instead on his art and studies. In college, he thrived. He double majored in fine arts and computer science, combining both passions into something uniquely his. He worked part-time at the university's digital media lab, saved money, and started building a portfolio that caught the attention of several galleries. Fast forward to last week. Our son, now 25, held his first major art exhibition in New York. He's become known for his unique style that combines traditional painting with digital elements, creating interactive pieces that blur the line between physical and digital art. The exhibition space was transformed by his vision. Massive canvases with projected elements that responded to viewers' movements, traditional paintings that revealed hidden digital layers when viewed through specially designed apps. The exhibition was packed with critics, collectors, and even some of my former students who'd seen the event promoted online. 3 of his pieces sold for more money than I make in a year. But that wasn't what made the evening special. During his speech, our son told the story of how he found his path. He talked about watching me grade papers late into the night, about the joy he saw in my face when my students succeeded, and about learning that success isn't measured by the size of your paycheck. My father taught art to thousands of students over 20 years, he said, his voice steady but emotional. He showed them and me that passion and dedication matter more than prestige. Every time someone called him a disappointment for being just a teacher, he proved them wrong by changing lives through his work. He's the reason I had the courage to pursue my dreams, to combine traditional art with technology in ways that felt true to me. His biggest lesson wasn't about art techniques or color theory. It was about integrity, about staying true to your vision even when others doubt you. My ex-wife was there, standing in the back in an expensive dress, her new husband nowhere in sight. I saw her face as our son spoke, saw the moment she realized how wrong she'd been. After the speech, she approached me for the first time in years, tears in her eyes. I was the disappointment, she said quietly. Not you. Never you. I was so focused on status and money that I missed what really mattered. Our son. He's amazing, and it's because of you. I'd like to say her words healed old wounds, but life isn't that simple. 20 years of hurt don't disappear with one apology. What I can say is this. Sometimes being called a disappointment is just someone else projecting their own fears and limitations onto you. Success isn't about meeting others' expectations. It's about staying true to yourself and lifting up those around you. My son and I had breakfast the next morning, just the 2 of us, like we used to when he was growing up. He told me about his upcoming projects, his dreams for future exhibitions. Then he said something that made all those years of doubt and struggle worth it. Dad, thank you for showing me that the biggest success is being proud of who you are and what you do. To all the disappointments out there, keep going. Your impact might not be visible for years, but you never know who's watching and learning from your example. Sometimes the greatest achievements aren't the ones that show up in your bank account. They're the lives you touch and the people you inspire along the way. Edit. Wow, this blew up overnight. Thanks for all the awards and kind messages. To those asking, yes, my son knows I'm sharing this story, and he's okay with it. And yes, I'm still teaching art, with no plans to stop anytime soon. The support from this community means more than you know. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with friends or family who might enjoy it too. Your support means a lot. And if you have any thoughts, questions, or story ideas, drop them in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next story.